Season of Discovery is here, and my goal is to create the strongest class ever made. I want to top not only DPS but also healing and damage taken, making sure I can fulfill all 3 roles by myself. But before trying any of this, we need to reach the max level of 25. So I decided to hit the start stream button and not end nor go to bed until I reached that level. Off to a strong start, we were slapped with a 1.5 hour long queue. But eventually we were let in and sent on our way to create our character, a mage. Dealing and taking damage is already the natural outcome of being a mage, since there are no tanks early on that can keep up with the threat generated by Arcane Explosion. And since the level cap in Season of Discovery is only 25, we exist perpetually in that state. This of course leaves us with the obvious problem. How are we going to top the healing meters as a mage? First aid? Conjure food? Well, thankfully the main attraction in Season of Discovery are things called runes. You can have 3 of them active at once and they essentially give you powerful abilities, some from other expansions while others completely new. With these there are many different opportunities that arise. Shamans, rogues and warlocks can tank, hunters can be melee, but most importantly, mages can heal. Mage healing doesn't work like a traditional healer though, where you cast heals into targets to keep them alive. Instead, anytime you use a heal, it infuses your target with a temporal beacon, and any arcane damage you deal translates into healing on your beacons. And as our main damage tool is already Arcane Explosion, theoretically our output will be insane. But it's not as simple as that. The runes are not automatically unlocked. You actually need to find them out in the world, and Blizzard has kept all of their locations a secret. They do give you one of the rip though, and mages are granted Icelands. I also found this other rune, Star Trek Fleet Command, which lets me have epic battles in a vast open world set in space. Space has always been one of my greatest interests, and I've always liked games that engage in that. This is why I love that Star Trek Fleet Command perfectly helps capture the freedom and immersion of exploring space in stunning graphics, which helps to bring the massive world to life with intricate detail and breathtaking visuals. And the part that matters the most to me in an MMO is a thriving community, which Star Trek Fleet Command has nailed. You can go on epic battles with players from all over the world, engaging in the diversity of playstyle this environment creates. But best of all, it's completely free. Not only that, the game is also seamlessly connected via crossplay, which means as long as you have a Scopely account, you can be enjoying the game from home at your PC, then instantly swap to your phone whenever you're on the move. Now is also a great time to start playing thanks to the new update featuring new fleet commanders, a new feature called Wave Defense, and completely new missions. To give you a head start, you can use the promo code to get the new player content pack for free, granting 10 epic shards of Captain James T. Kirk himself. All you have to do is use my link in the description once in game, go to your player profile, open settings, click general, then scroll down to the very end to sign up for your Scopely account. Then go to the official website and click the store icon to log in and visit the web store. Once there, open the promo codes page and enter the code WARPSPEED to redeem your rewards. Once redeemed, you'll be able to see them when you get back to your game. But that's enough waiting around. It's time to install the game and finally become a commander in the Star Trek universe, and really show the world that you are the superior strategist as you're researching the universe and battling space pirates. Thank you to Star Trek Fleet Command for sponsoring this video. So, Icelands. Originally introduced in TBC, learned at level 66, we instead get it as early as level 2. A simple instant ability that deals a low amount of damage, tripled if the enemy is frozen. We have no way to freeze enemies right now, but it's still very useful for tagging and dragging enemies considering its low mana cost. Getting stuck in a queue is basically the worst thing that can happen at launch, because the only feasible way to level fast is to get ahead of the pack early. And now we're already 1.5 hours behind schedule. Luckily, thanks to layering and the new hyperspawn mechanics, most of the time it's pretty calm, and the only eventual trouble will be the upcoming AoE farming. Still, what I can rely on that most people can't is that I have no life, so hopefully I will outlast most people in the marathon that is leveling. What is this, man? Fingers of Frost! No. That is insane. Boy, is it the Season of Discovery or what? Because I just found myself the second rune of my journey, Fingers of Frost. This spell gives Frostbolt and Frost Armor a 15% chance to make my next 2 hits count as if the target is frozen. Essentially what this does is let me use 2 Ice Lances for triple damage, and is very mana efficient, so generally pretty good. Unbeknownst to me at the time was that I completely missed 2 runes from the starting zone, and one of them would really come to bite me in the ass. I traveled to Darkshore and back, then back again, until it was time for Westfall. Now before this, the zones hadn't been too bad. Darkshore was seemingly empty with a few people dotted around, and there were plenty of enemies and spots around Loch Modan in case main areas were crowded. But I was not ready for Westfall. The ratio of players to NPCs was actually insane. I think literally every possible mob spawn had a person occupying it. And even when running off to lesser known locations, people were still scurrying around like rats. At this point, the only thing I was discovering was depression. But then, a spark of hope. As I was wallowing in despair, I stumbled upon some spare Reaper parts. So many questions though. What is a prototype engine? What is an elemental core? The answers we were soon about to discover. My leading theory for the core was simply from the Dust Devils patrolling the zone, as they were the first elemental that came to mind. Before I had the chance to test my ideas, I tried my hand at a bit more questing. One thing I had completely forgotten during all this time was that Blizzard stated that the enemies in Season of Discovery would be buffed in order to compensate for the power increase provided by the runes. Now my runes are decent for single target, but due to the aforementioned missed runes in the starting zone, my AoE output was still that of a regular mage. Except now, the enemies have about 15% more health, which may not seem like a lot, but at this level, mana is extremely tight. And even without the extra health, I would most likely struggle a fair bit. After dying a few times, I was starting to question how I ever made it to 60 twice on hardcore, once as a mage using only arcane spells. Well, that line of questioning ended abruptly as I ran headfirst into a Dust Devil. Oh, it does. And not that anybody would have ever doubted my genius in the first place, my hypothesis proved true, and we were granted an elemental core to use with the parts, combining them into an engine. An engine fit for a Harvest Reaper prototype. Whatever the hell that is. Surprisingly, that question wouldn't really linger on our mind for long. Oh, hello. Here's the Reaper. Let me drop something. What the f— I was not prepared. No. Why, man? Why is it a fight? Oh, no? No one? Oh, thank you, King. Okay, give me something cool. Lit! Excuse the reaction, but Living Bomb is actually kinda crazy. This was the capstone talent for fire mages in Wrath of the Lich King, and it's completely ridiculous that we have access to it at level 17, as I will now demonstrate. Any amount of health buffs in the world could not save these guys from what was about to come. Living Bomb is not only extremely mana efficient, unlike Arcane Explosion, I can apply all of it from afar, considerably reducing incoming damage taken. After a slaughter only described as putting Grey in morally, we left Westfall with around 9 hours played, close to level 18. As we approach level 20 entering Ashenvale, you might notice that despite all these levels, we are still absolutely not looking like a mage healer in any sense of the definition. While I can't say I've been extremely active in discovering thus far, I have been tentatively refreshing the world wide webs for any news on the matter, and haven't had much luck. Eventually we reach Redridge, a generally good zone for mages, as that's when the AoE pulling ramps up quite a bit. Although the momentous task of acquiring 5 tough Condor meat still stands between us hitting level 25 or discovering a very tall bridge. Actually, turns out I shouldn't have been such a wimp about it, because I had to come back to the spot to grind out XP later anyways, which means going dry isn't even a bad thing. So I'm sorry, Jeff. Turns out my mental is weak and you are actually a genius. Every seasoned mage knows that the game doesn't even start until level 22. Before then, you are running around in a playground, pulling 3 to maybe 5 mobs at a time like a toddler just learning to walk. But at 22, the combination of permafrost and improved blizzard rears its extremely sexy head, just in time for us to reach the wetlands. Okay, remember when I said the enemy's health was increased? Yeah, as I was getting ready to massacre the local gnoll population for generations to come, it eluded me that their HP was in fact 20% higher than normal, which isn't great. At such an early level, I only have mana for max 3 blizzards, which is barely enough to take them down originally, and not even close to taking them down right now. As I was fumbling around like a buffoon, having extremely close calls every pull and most of the time not even able to execute them, I started to question my abilities yet again, as it was seemingly way harder than I recalled. I was getting a bit concerned about the viability of this grind, but at that exact moment is when we made the greatest discovery of all time. What's going on here, man? What is he getting healed from? Oh, he has to heal. Now, I'm not sure if you caught what he just did, but he ran straight first into that entire camp of gnolls, staring death right in the face and absolutely destroyed them without so much as a scratch. This was truly the power of the healer mage, which had eluded me for so long. My target was set upon the small island situated in the lock itself. But before that, I kinda had to wait for my Hearthstone, since the time loss would be quite severe had I not waited for it. And actually, it started going kinda well with the blizzard pulse despite the health increase. So well, in fact, that we made it through more than half the level before it was time to leave. Just as easy as a quick flight and swimming over, we were now officially able to heal. It strikes me now that just jumping off the dam would have taken me straight back to the gnolls, which is a lot faster than the Hearthstone back, but apparently I needed a comprehension rune to decipher the scroll anyways, so back to wetlands we went. The big blunder coming back to bite us from earlier was not picking up the living flame rune from Elwyn as we ran past the exact spot to get it. Turns out living flame is spell flame damage, which means it's not only fire, it's also arcane. Our beacon heals us for 40% of all arcane damage we deal, and living flame deals an absurd amount of damage to every enemy standing in the flame, making the mage practically immortal for the duration. Still, living bomb wasn't bad for the task either. I just made sure to pull the stragglers with 4 to 5 bombs, then cautiously use arcane explosion to keep us topped while still conserving mana until the bombs blew up, killing off the enemies. Despite the initial 1.5 hour queue and us running around like a headless chicken for most of Westfall, we were actually on pace to be the first Alliance mage on our server, Living Flame EU, to hit level 25. This came as quite a surprise, but I was now motivated to step up my game for the final stretch. And after 16 hours and 48 minutes, I had reached the final level of Season of Discovery Phase 1, and I could finally go to bed. While technically, the game had only been out for 18 hours, the release is close to midnight in Europe, which means that getting sufficient sleep before the gates open is actually quite a task, especially when you have other things to do during the day, which meant I had been up for close to 36 hours with nothing but a 2-hour nap before the launch. So yeah, bed was very welcoming. Day 2 was going to be the day where we tested the true strength of Arcane Mage Healer. There was one slight problem though. While we were sleeping, Blizzard posted a hotfix to the game, nerfing Arcane Explosion healing done by 80%, stating that they didn't intend for mages to trivialize the game. And I must say I have no idea what they're talking about. It's obviously balanced because mages are supposed to always be the strongest. It's also lore friendly, right? But it actually seemed that the change wasn't implemented yet, which means we were in a race against Blizzard themselves. We could not simply rush into dungeons just yet though. You see, we still have some runes to sort. Our chest slot is currently occupied by the regeneration rune, as it should be. But in our glove slot we are running Living Bomb, a spell notably absent of arcane damage. Now there are 2 options here. First is Rewind Time, which reverses all damage dealt to my beacon targets in the last 5 seconds, which while great, is completely surpassed by Arcane Blast. The reason being that we actually heal from the damage we deal, and Arcane Blast is miles stronger than Arcane Missiles in terms of single target and way more mana efficient than both that and regeneration. Getting Arcane Blast was as simple as using Arcane Explosion on 3 crystals, and we got the rune. Before I ended the stream the day prior, I actually went and got my hands on Living Flame, which is now in my leg slot. But there is another option, Mass Regeneration. This spell heals and applies beacon to all party members within 15 yards of the target, which is disgustingly strong for AoE healing. Still, since Living Flame makes anybody with a beacon borderline immortal for 20 seconds, coupled with the fact that there's probably not going to be a lot of spread damage amongst my allies in dungeons, the more powerful of the 2 remains to be seen. With our new best in slot spells, we finished up the Deadmines pre-quest, of course unparalleled when it comes to quest sniping abilities, and then it was time for our first dungeon as a healer. Although, since I didn't have mastery regeneration yet, this was more of a trial run, because we decided to basically run as an off healer for safety. Now, it's not often in life when you feel like the main character, but I guarantee you, the other members of my party were essentially extras to make me shine. The tank tried desperately to tank, the DPS tried desperately to keep up, but it was all for naught. As soon as the fire was down on the ground and my explosions started flying, not only were the elites dropping like flies, they didn't even land a single blow on me. During the demise run, I got word that mass regeneration had been discovered. So after the dungeon, I hurried over to Duskwood to join an intrepid band of adventurers on the journey for the rune. First, we had to grab a phylactery out of a chest hidden along the wall in the northeastern crypt. Then journeyed to the west crypt where a skeleton awaited us on a chair, becoming a lich once infused with the phylactery. And with the final piece of the puzzle acquired, we set out on the path towards Barrens, to our first real healer dungeon, Wailing Caverns. And let me say, mage healing without Living Flame is actually quite interesting. While you can use your mana for DPS output, it's actually super important to pace yourself, making sure to not run out before the pull is done. This can be quite tricky because it's hard to estimate if you're doing too much and are running out of mana, or if you're not doing enough, and the enemies stay alive for longer as a result, draining even more than it would have. Mass regeneration also only hits party members within 15 yards of the target, so it was up to me to position, making sure everybody got the buff. All in all, the run was smooth, and taking a look at the damage meters afterwards is kinda crazy. I barely lost the first place spot by 2k damage, but of course this was also while being the only healer. But while it was cool, I guess, to heal, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I wasn't on top of the DPS meters. I did top healing, yes, but I wasn't even the one tanking. Of course, this had to change, and the completely obvious choice was to go back to Living Flame for Shadowfang Keep. This dungeon is a bit different in that it's actually within our level range, as opposed to 4 levels under. Again, we went with a kinda 2 healer setup, but do not be alarmed. That does not mean I won't be healing. This run was actually mad. Every pull, I grabbed an obscene amount of enemies and just tanked them all to the face, as a mage, all the while completely eclipsing the competition on DPS and healing. The first run went so well that we sent a second one straight after, and this was even more crazy. Now that I had a grasp of my own potential, every pull was disgustingly large, and it didn't matter if they drained my mana, silenced, or whatever tricks they had, all fell before me. And thus, our final form and goal was complete, topping every metric: DPS, healing, damage taken. We are now the Exodia of Season of Discovery. Until the next day rolled around and Arcane Explosion was actually nerfed. Oh well, but is it actually weak now? Well, I wanted to know that, so to test it out, I went and soloed the Dead Mines. So yeah, I guess Mage Healer is still kinda strong, and it only took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deaths total. Also, don't forget to use my Star Trek Fleet Command link in the description or scan my QR to become a commander in the Star Trek universe. See ya!